Welcome to Biggest Spoilars, the destination for exclusive spoilers, latest updates.
General Hospital recap for reveals that Willow Kane blubbed over Drew Kane's doubtful recovery after it was decided that Scout Quartermain was moving in with Alexis Davis. At the PCPD, Dante Falconeri sat down with Harrison Chase in the interrogation room, where he revealed the outgrowth of internal affairs disquisition. Although Chase violated policy, there was no substantiation of corruption and he hadn't broken any laws. Dante revealed that Chase wasn't being fired, but he was being disrated and would have to go back to being an officer on command. Chase flew off the handle, but Dante felt there had to be consequences and suggested he could work his way up to being an operative again. Still, Chase felt he was being penalized for being right about the Willow case. Dante stood his ground and left the decision up to Chase when it came to whether he'd accept this reduction. As Chase stormed out, he told Nathan West he might want to start looking for a new mate. Nathan got the scoop on everything and learned Dante would be leaning on him more now that Chase was no longer operative. At Jocelyn Jack's apartment, she was stupefied when Jack Brennan showed up in person to tell her she'd been killed and that Britt Westbourne was their new asset on Ladle Island. Jocelyn protested, but Brennan revealed about director Ross Cullum's appearance from the European division. Brennan had kept Jocelyn's identity and all her details sealed in a dossier since he knew she'd be expendable to someone like Cullum. Jocelyn was now on slumberer status and prompted to distance herself from Lucas Jones, but Joss incontinently headed to GH under the guise of helping Lucas and Carly Spencer make peace. Lucas invited Jocelyn to Windmere after his rounds and mentioned Pascal was out of city, so Jocelyn accepted the assignation. At the Quartermain manse, Tracy Quartermain offered to be Jason Morgan's justification for whatever he did to Drew, but Jason was adamant that he didn't beget his family's stroke. Danny Morgan heard the Drew news latterly and bothered about Scout. Since Danny wanted to see his family, Jason allowed. Alexis might be suitable to help. At Bobby's, Britt came downward and spotted Cullum as he met with Rocco Falconeri and Lulu Spencer. Cullum had questions about Professor Henry Hank Dalton's exposure, but Lulu just assumed he bolted after the break heft and Rocco frame-up drama. Cullum passed along his card in case Lulu and Rocco recalled anything differently they could pass on. Hard, Britt informed Carly that she wanted to tell her in person that she was moving out of that slum. Britt disrespected the place and brought Bobby Spencer's name into it, so Carly snappily got rankled up. It turned into a Jason-related argument as Cullum floated and rattled Britt. As Britt kept pushing Carly's buttons, Carly eventually realized she baited her into this fight and wanted some answers about why. Britt denied provoking Carly into the sweepstakes and blustered about Jason's obligation to her. When Jason intruded, Britt snapped that Carly just reminded her why she wanted nothing to do with him. In Laura Collins' office, Elizabeth Baldwin showed up to check on her now that Kevin Collins and Ace Cassadine were living in Dublin. Latterly, Lulu arrived with some updates that left Laura uneasy. Laura was intimately worried as she learned Cullum had been quizzing Lulu and Rocco about Professor Dalton's evaporating act. Chase wound up back at the Quartermain manse, where he threw Tracy's backgammon set across the room. Tracy set up Chase drawing it up and learned what happened, so she responded with compassion and felt he'd a lot to talk about with Brooklyn Quartermain. Meanwhile, Willow headed to Alexis' office, where she revealed Drew's stroke and wondered how to handle effects with Scout. Alexis allowed. She should tell Scout what happened and felt it'd be stylish if her granddaughter moved in with her for now. Willow agreed with all that before Alexis mentioned the possibility of Scout seeing Danny. Although Willow knew about Scout's former visit with her family and left Drew out of the circle, she was cautious of allowing further visits since Drew could find out when he woke up. Alexis suggested they could readdress the discussion once they knew further about Drew's prognostic, so Willow was on board with that. Danny came to Alexis latterly hoping she could talk to Willow about him seeing Scout. Alexis admitted she formerly did and that the timing wasn't right yet, but she gave Danny some hope for the future. At GH, Nina Reeves had a discussion with Kai Taylor about the good and the bad sides of Drew. Although Nina couldn't really cut ties with Willow's hubby, she suggested perhaps Drew's medical extremity could change him. Kai misdoubted that since getting shot didn't affect Drew's way of thinking. Indeed so, Nina advised Kai not to rush into quitting his position in Drew's office since he could maybe keep doing some good there. Once Willow appeared, she told Nina about her scout decision and gave Kai the hand he demanded for a Drew-related statement to the media. After Lucas meeting with the neurologist, he told Willow about the inflexibility of Drew's stroke. Drew would need expansive remedy for his speech and motor chops, but Willow knew that a full recovery, though not insolvable, was doubtful. Willow blubbed as she continued to play the part of an worried woman. Nina bothered Willow might be forgiving Drew or starting to love him again, but Willow intimately told her that she just wanted to make sure her hubby got the treatment he merited. General Hospital spoilers say Willow will make some other shocking moves as this story moves along, so stay tuned. General Hospital spoilers allude that Michael Corinthos may allow Willow Kane's visit with the kiddies now that Drew Kane's influence is over. Although Michael easily has issues with Willow too, GH suckers know Drew has been his biggest problem throughout his feud with High's ex-wife. Michael has been adamant about not wanting his children living with Drew, so he's had good reasons to fight hard against Willow having any kind of guardianship or visit. Still, Michael's station fused a bit when he realized she might go to captivity. That led to Michael agreeing that Willow could see Wiley Corinthos and Amelia Corinthos through the programs available to her behind bars. When Willow questioned Michael about what would be if the verdict was shamefaced, it was egregious that Drew's presence in her life was still going to be an issue. That may be why Willow made a bold move so snappily after her vindication. Willow wasted no time in using that hype on Drew and turning him into a massive stroke victim. It's easy to see that Willow's hopeless for time with her children, so it presumably won't be long until she has another visit talk with Michael. Willow may point out that Michael's Drew enterprises are over since he has to concentrate on his health now, however, also Michael doesn't have to worry about him lying to the kiddies or manipulating them in any way, if Drew's haggling with Locked and Pattern due to his stroke. Drew has hurt Wiley with manipulation tactics ahead, but that can't be if Drew's unfit to communicate. Willow wouldn't want to do anything to make Michael suspicious of Drew's fire, but she could at least admit that he got what he wanted. Deep down, Michael knows how important Wiley and Amelia miss Willow. It's been hard for the kiddies to deal with this separation from their mama, so Michael may decide to yield on visit now that Drew isn't part of the package. Michael might also consider the possibility that effects could shift in Willow's favor in court now that he's the top shooter suspect. It might be in Michael's stylish interest to start compromising with Willow in case she gains the upper hand when it comes to guardianship. General Hospital spoilers say Willow's attack on Drew could pay off in a big way once she reunites with Wiley and Amelia, so stay tuned to see if she'll get updates on some good news. General Hospital spoilers and updates for Friday, January 23rd. Tease Carly Spencer explains, Ava Jerome interrupts, and Emma Scorpio Drake's worries. Also, Britt Westbourne has questions, Harrison Chase talks the future, and Anna Devane's fights visions. Carly explains at Bobby's. Jason Morgan walked in on a major argument between Carly and Britt. Carly tells him that Britt wanted a fight right there. Jason looks puzzled. What neither Carly nor Jason know is that crooked WSB director Ross Cullum hovered Jason to Britt. Britt had complained about her room over Bobby's to Carly, telling her she was having problems with Cuisine Bank and the suchlike, making defenses. Effects regressed into a fierce argument between the two, and Carly tells Jason her side of it. Britt has questions and malignancy of that Britt is likely trying to produce good defenses to break up with Jason when their love has slightly started. She tears into Jason with questions. She has a point when she demands of Jason who comes first, her or Carly. All the times combined that Carly was married to Sonny Corinthos, it's like the three were always a triad and Sonny just accepted it. It's Carly that's not accepting that Jason wants to be involved with Britt. And indeed when he first came involved with Sam McCall she wouldn't accept her either. Ava interrupts at Windmere. Ava interrupts Jocelyn Jacks as she's presumably poking. Indeed, though Jack Brennan killed Jocelyn for her own safety, she may still find herself poking just a little bit while staying for Lucas Jones. Ava says to Jocelyn, seems like perhaps I intruded commodity? Will Ava keep this to herself, or will Jocelyn come up with a credible cover story? Maybe, Lucas will walk in on the questioning session and perhaps Marco Rios will be with him. Chase addresses the unborn in the meantime. Back at the Quartermain manse, Chase talks the future to Brooklyn Quartermaine Chase. He tells her that he thinks it's time they concentrate their attention on espousing. They tabled the discussion when the verity about Gio Palmieri being Brooklyn's son came out, but now mama and son have made strides in their relationship. Still, with Chase's reduction to a beat Bobby, will his job be more dangerous? Will that indeed factor into their discussion about starting their family? Emma's upset. Emma and Gio are at the police station talking to Nathan West about Emma's worries about Anna. Emma's face is filled with fear as she tells Nathan she's starting to suppose that her grandma's in trouble. Nathan looks veritably concerned at what Emma is telling him, but will he be suitable to help? This may be commodity that he'll need to relate to someone over his head. On the other hand, might Nathan be more involved in this than he could ever admit? Anna fights hallucinations in the meantime. In malignancy of Pascal apparently being in France to take care of commodity, Anna appears to still be in her cell underneath Windmere Castle. It's egregious she's fighting visions or commodity as she fights her fancies of Caesar Faison. But is she looking at someone and seeing them as someone differently, as when the nanny gave her a phlebotomy, and she allowed she was Liesel Albrecht? Or is she literally chasing ghosts, with the image she sees being a hologram from a projector? Either way, Anna is talking to what she sees, saying this is Aunt passing, you're not then. The day began in Port Charles like a quiet prayer whispered before a storm, soft, trembling, and already doomed to be swallowed by thunder. At General Hospital, the sterile scent of antiseptic hung in the air as Willow Kane stood frozen in the hallway, her arms wrapped around herself as if she could hold her world together through sheer will alone. News of Drew Kane's catastrophic stroke had spread like wildfire, but for Willow, it burned in slow, agonizing waves. Her tears didn't fall all at once, they came in heavy, broken sobs, the kind that stole the breath from her chest and left her gasping like she had been pushed beneath dark, unforgiving water. This was her baptism of fire. The doctors had spoken of damaged pathways, of shattered communication between brain and body, of a recovery that would be brutal, uncertain, and possibly incomplete. Words like unlikely and extensive therapy echoed in her mind like a cruel chant. And yet, as she wept, her grief felt layered, not just fear for Drew's future, but something deeper, more complicated, and far more dangerous. Elsewhere, in Alexis Davis's office, a different kind of storm brewed, one that mixed sorrow with resolve, fear with fierce, protective love. Willow sat across from Alexis, her eyes red, her voice fragile, as she revealed the full scope of Drew's condition. She spoke of Scout, of how the little girl deserved safety, stability, and a home untouched by hospital beeps and whispered medical conversations. Alexis listened, her heart aching, her hands folded as if in prayer. She should stay with me, Alexis finally said, her voice steady but soft. For now. Let her be a child, not a witness to a battle she can't understand. Willow hesitated only a moment before nodding. It felt right. It felt merciful. But mercy, in Port Charles, often walked hand in hand with secrets. When Alexis gently mentioned Danny, his longing to see his sister, his quiet hope, Willow's expression shifted. She admitted she'd allowed a visit before without Drew knowing. The truth hung between them like a fragile glass ornament, one wrong move away from shattering. We'll talk about it later, Alexis said, offering not a command but an encouraging word. When we know more. When the ground beneath us feels less like it's crumbling. Willow agreed, though her eyes betrayed the conflict raging behind them. At the PCPD, another reckoning unfolded, one built not on medicine and mercy, but on rules, consequences, and wounded pride. Harrison Chase sat across from Dante Falconeri in the interrogation room, the fluorescent lights above them casting harsh shadows across both their faces. The silence was thick, loaded, heavy with what was about to be said. Dante didn't sugarcoat it. Internal Affairs had reviewed everything. Chase had crossed lines, used privileged information, followed his instincts instead of protocol, let personal conviction guide official action. But corruption? Criminal intent? They found none. Still, there would be a price. You're not fired, Dante said. But you're not a detective anymore. The words hit like a physical blow. Chase surged to his feet, fury flashing in his eyes. He ranted about being punished for being right, about how he had seen through Willow's lies, how he had chased the truth when others looked away. Dante stood his ground. "There have to be consequences," he said firmly. "You can work your way back. Or you can walk away. That part is up to you." Chase didn't answer. He stormed out instead, his footsteps echoing like gunshots in the hallway. Nathan West watched him go, unease settling in his gut as Dante admitted they were down a detective now. The weight of the city's secrets, crimes, and shadows would fall heavier on the shoulders of those left behind. Across town, at Jocelyn Jack's apartment, the storm took on a far more dangerous shape. The knock at the door wasn't loud, but it was final. Jack Brennan stood there, his expression grim, his presence alone enough to send a chill down Jocelyn's spine. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. "You're out," he told her. "Deactivated. Sleeper status. Ghost." Director Ross Cullum had arrived from Europe, a powerful figure with a reputation for treating people like disposable assets. Brennan admitted he'd kept Jocelyn's identity locked away in a sealed dossier, knowing that someone like Cullum would see her as nothing more than expendable. Her orders were clear: step away from the WSB. Stay away from Spoon Island. Stay away from Lucas Jones. Stay invisible. Jocelyn argued, her voice shaking with anger and betrayal. She had sacrificed too much, lost too much, to be told to disappear like she had never mattered. But Brennan didn't bend. Britt Westbourne was the new asset. Jocelyn was the liability. The moment he left, Jocelyn did the exact opposite of what she'd been told. She went to General Hospital. Under the guise of playing peacemaker between Lucas and Carly Spencer, she slid back into the orbit she had been ordered to avoid. Lucas, grateful for the distraction, invited her to Windmere later, casually mentioning that Pascal, the mysterious butler, was out of town. Jocelyn accepted, even as a warning bell rang in the back of her mind. At the Quartermaine mansion, old grudges and new fears collided. Tracy Quartermaine offered Jason Morgan an alibi, a shield against whatever whispers and accusations might swirl around Drew's sudden collapse. Jason refused. He didn't need lies. He didn't want them. When Danny learned about Drew's stroke, his concern went straight to Scout. He wanted to see his sister. He wanted to protect her in the only way a child could, by being there. Jason, knowing his own hands were tied, thought of Alexis. And at Bobby's, the past, the present, and the future all crashed into each other at once. Ross Cullum sat at a table, calm and composed, as Lulu Spencer and Rocco Falconeri joined him. His questions were polite, measured, about Professor Henry Dalton, about the break-in, about the disappearance. Lulu brushed it off, assuming Dalton had simply run. Rocco echoed her uncertainty. Cullum handed over his card, his smile thin, his eyes calculating. Nearby, Britt Westbourne ignited a different kind of fire. She told Carly she was moving out of her room above Bobby's, mocking the place, dragging Bobby's name into it. Carly snapped back, and within seconds, the argument turned into something deeper, uglier, and far more personal. Jason. Years of history, loyalty, resentment, and unresolved emotion spilled out in sharp, cutting words. Cullum hovered, observing, clearly rattling Britt with something unspoken, something threatening. When Jason finally stepped in, Britt lashed out, declaring that Carly had just reminded her why she wanted nothing to do with him. In Laura Collins' office, Elizabeth Baldwin offered comfort where she could. With Kevin and Ace living in Dublin, Laura's world had grown quieter, lonelier. Liz reminded her she didn't have to face that silence alone. But when Lulu arrived and mentioned Cullum's questions about Dalton, Laura's unease deepened. The name, the timing, the sudden interest, none of it felt like coincidence. Chase, still burning with anger, ended up back at the Quartermaine mansion, where he knocked Tracy's backgammon set to the floor in a moment of raw frustration. When Tracy found him cleaning it up, she didn't scold him. She listened. She encouraged him to talk to Brooke Lynn, to think about his future instead of the injustice of his present. At the hospital, Nina Reeves tried to guide Kai Taylor through his own moral storm. She spoke of Drew's good and bad sides, of how a crisis could change a person, or reveal who they truly were. Kai wasn't convinced. Being shot hadn't changed Drew. Why would this? Still, Nina urged him not to walk away from his job just yet. Maybe he could still do some good from the inside. When Willow arrived, she signed off on a media statement, informed Nina about Scout moving in with Alexis, and braced herself for the truth Lucas brought back from the neurologist. The words were devastating. Severe damage. Long road. Uncertain outcome. Willow crumbled again, her sobs echoing through the hallway. Liz comforted her. Nina watched, worried. Was this grief, or something else? Was Willow forgiving Drew? Falling for him again? Later, in private, Willow insisted she only wanted him to get the care he deserved. But in Port Charles, motives were rarely that simple. Whispers spread that Michael Corinthos might soften when it came to Willow and the children. With Drew incapacitated, possibly even trapped in a locked-in state, the man Michael feared as a manipulator was effectively silenced. The door to visitation, to reunions with Wiley and Amelia, began to creak open. And in the shadows of Windmere, another nightmare unfolded. Anna Devane, trapped beneath the castle, fought visions that may have been hallucinations, or something far more sinister. Faces shifted. Enemies from her past appeared where allies should have been. She spoke to ghosts, or projections, or phantoms only she could see, her voice breaking as she insisted it wasn't real. But in Port Charles, the line between illusion and reality was razor thin. The day closed with Britt confronting Jason, demanding an answer that had haunted every woman in his life. "Who comes first?" she asked. "Me, or Carly?" And somewhere in the darkness, Ross Cullum watched it all unfold like a chess master studying a board already in motion. Baptisms of fire. Words of comfort. Threats whispered and shouted. In this town, every act of mercy carried a shadow, and every tear fell on ground already soaked with secrets.